Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and it's so lovely to see all your fluttering hands and smiling faces. Um, it's just very exciting. And of course, it's Zoom, so it's also strange, but I'm grateful that we could be together, pipes or no pipes. So with my partner and husband, George Yatchison, we have been writing a poem a day since the beginning of the year. And so far we're sticking with it. So what I've selected to read tonight is I'll read I'm kind of opening act here. So I'm going to read 14 of the poems that are new this year and just share them out with you guys. The first one speaks to the process of trying to put a book together. And I think a lot of us have been there. So this is called Building the Book. The poems wiggle slowly onto the pages, like grunion, inelegant, shimmering flip-flaps that grind over the rough pulp for purchase. Look how some snip, how some coil together and glow onto the reader with a cinematic flicker. These tiny fish spawned in the moonlight, wiggle into the ocean, become part of it. Here are your small lines, the baleen that captures all the richness and grows whale. And this one, I don't know if you all heard the news, but Charlie Brown died this year. The voice actor that did the voice of Charlie Brown in so many of the cartoons. So this is a poem in response to that. Charlie Brown is dead, for Peter Robbins, 1956 to 2022. The first time I heard the word grief, it was a stranger's cry from a wide, toothless mouth, a tennis ball head split almost in half by betrayal and rage at the football. The future, the no good, betraying hand of fate, setting it up and letting it fall away from the kick. Was it ever close to funny? Goodbye, well-laid plans. Good grief, as if there ever was such a thing. Thank you. And this also, the title refers to the last poem of January. So it's 1 down, 11 to go. At least once a day, I try to calculate how well I am using time. Where does the time go, my friend asks. Doesn't somebody owe her an answer? It's all water cascading over a cliff or toward the sea. In any case, bridge be damned. Here is the little person in the barrel. Let's say she's mid-50s, tall, not too thin, bobbing along. When will she know? Will anyone set up a net? In any case, writing this poem is a check off my list, wanting the river to meander, pulled from the current for a phone call, a glass of wine, a good book, rushless. Thank you. And this is called Watching My Body Do Wrong. And it refers to the old, I think most of us here will probably remember film strips from the old days. But for you kids, this will be a flashback in time. Watching my body do wrong. Old film strips. I seem to remember bridges, not like our bridges, that would open like an alligator's jaw, or like two alligators, snout to snout, yawning simultaneously, so ships could get upriver. Like scissors cut paper, ships trump cars, who would just have to suck up, waiting, watching the boat chug its way north. A miracle of engineering, or so it seemed then in black and white, with that lovely fluttering sound of the film through the school projector's teeth. Where I lived was full color and the 70s, and flat and dry. Concrete bridges stayed put over the thin wiggle we called the San Diego River. Still today, I think of those films, sound out of sync, and my own self that struggles to time the thought and the thing the thought wants done. Step up, but curbs rise like wicked tricks. My first bone waits to be broken. The clock is ticking. The film ends with a flutter on the reel, the bright bulb unfiltered on the pull-down screen. And this one is called Santa Barbara Spring. Perhaps a few months under ice would have us on our knees in gratitude at this warm green day of sour grass and scrub jays. No matter yesterday's radiance, the cloudlessness glistening beyond the islands, just 1 week into February. The sun shimmies over this citrus-scented paradise. We do not need darkness to know to praise its light. And this poem is about a friend of mine who had an early form of dementia called Pick's disease. It's very like Alzheimer's, but it hits much earlier. It's called Disintegrating Garden. It seems important to remember that the mind breaks down, to look at the fallen fruit and see yourself there looking up, the skyward gaze, the slow blur of earth and self. It's not sadness that warms you. Time hums and strokes us until we are worn smooth. When dementia started shaking its way through you, the roots of your mind said, "Quick now, flower and seed." You saw sex everywhere, heard it drumming in the streets, insisting you should. You should. This is why we love the mind. It's yes. The body's cascade into ill repair, forgotten shower, tangle of hair into thicket, stumbling feet. That was all part of the end. Sound of rocks scraping the hull. But even so, the mind's calculating survival. What can be carried on? Surely we can try. Everything is radiant, unfurling. All the pollen wants is this warm breeze. And for those of you who are not in the Santa Barbara area, we've had some very huge, gusty, windy days lately. So this speaks to that. We live in a rather old house and it was creaky around here. This is Bluster. The wind makes of the old fence new percussion. Gates clacking on their hinges, the hedges creak like springs in an old sofa. All the yard, it turns out, can make noise. The rocks finding their voice when loose branches clatter down. From inside this old bungalow, easy to imagine Tasmanian swirls of leaf, cyclones circling perimeter. Wood frame windows whistle now and then, acting casual, flattering even, in the way of old screw crews. Hey, lady, watch this. It's gonna be something. Narcissus waving. And this is more yard sounds since I've had a lot of time at home in the last couple of years. Stories and sounds. With my back to the window, I listen to know the weather, wondering when the hawks are loud, who they are calling to. It can't really be a song, but what motivates their squawking if not joy? Successful ransack of a gray squirrel's nest, spirals in the wind on a blue day. I cannot guess, feet flat beneath my chair without their wings. Thank you. We have chickens. Well, we had chickens, and now we have one chicken. And she's quite old for a chicken. But I had always thought that I would be a pioneer woman who was willing to off my chicken when the time came. But it didn't turn out that way. So this poem is called In Which the Lowest Becomes Queen. The Grimm brothers knew a good story, or at least how to catalog all of the anecdotes, fables that folks had been sharing for ages. They are extraordinary for their imaginative cruelties. The horror of whittling down like wood a woman's foot still comes to mind, and blood soaking the exquisite slipper as a cloddish wannabe tried to claim it as hers. The wicked sliced and diced, baked and steamed, drowned and hanged in turns. But for the virtuous, odd privilege, metamorphosis into a crow or a beautiful tangle of roses on a grave. There is a young hen, beautiful and wild, tormented by her flock. When they die one by one of a slow, mysterious malady, we know then the picked upon is holy, somehow spared. She becomes a sage, welcomed into the home where she basks by the furnace on wintry mornings. She chats with the family there, and they feed her peanuts, and thus some balance in the world is righted. When we walk into the kitchen, we say, "Good morning, hen," and treat her with the respect her story earns. Thank you. And of course, with everything that's happening now, some of that sneaks in to the poems as well. This is called There is Horror Happening. Next door, a child is screaming, shrill warbles that melt into sobs and struggle back up into shrieks. The yard is full of children. All of them, except the screamer, speak gravely to the grown-up. Do not, he thinks, negotiate with terrorists. One of the older kids suggests I spy, and so they do, diffusing the screamer by way of distraction. This is the way we play here, while around the globe, teenagers rip their dress clothes into fuses, gather up empties, while their dads overnight become soldiers. And just two more, I think, three more, but they're short. Windstorm. Again, these winds. The gale's been going all day. The wood-framed windows rattle and whisper, enough wind to sway the old drapes. The dried fronds shush like wave after wave. It's only air, but it feels like being washed away, like less of the world will be here when it stops. We will all need to let go, but from the sound of this rattling world, there's nobody wants to. We are across the street from an elementary school where I spend a lot of my time working with the kids there. This is called Kid on Kid. Bombs pummel Kyiv. The rumble circles the globe. Peace wobbles on its dais. We use our fuel to destroy, engineer fighters to send them to destruction. We fight. The shadow is cast across the world, even to the school across the street, where little kids talk about coffins, beatings, blood. One student plots an ambush and talks about jumping another, talks about putting them in the ground. The children's hospital is bombed in Ukraine. A fleeing family is killed all at once, rolling suitcase still upright next to their bodies, covered by tablecloths and reddening sheets. This is a time for bullies to make their mark. Even a little kid can see it. And this is my last one. Thank you so much to Phil and to Marcia and to all of you for being here. I'm really grateful, and I'm excited to hear Karin read. It's really an honor. But this final poem is, So I Guess It's War. It seems like we should have outgrown it by now. Yet here we are, thinking about demolition, filling the newspapers with pictures of preschools, holes blasted in their pink and purple walls. Here we are watching families bundle into buses, watching the stars turn to bombs in the night. Here we are, green, gray, new fatigues for everyone.